So what is up, my friends? Welcome to the Role Clarity Roundup, and today's going to be all about what does it look like to be a church worship leader. This is part of a series focusing on local church ministries with the goal of helping leaders think strategically about how to communicate the role clarity for the critical positions that they're filling and how do they play out in their specific context. I'm Lee Taylor, and I help leaders of churches and small businesses revolutionize the way they create role clarity for their teams. We believe role clarity can be created quickly, simply, and in a way that's actually used. And it can be more than just an HR process to check off of a list, but it can be key to giving leaders the skills and the tools they need to maximize every member on their team and to build that thriving team. Today, I'm excited to have Todd Sturgell with us. Todd serves as the executive pastor of experiences and campuses at Stevens Creek Church in Augusta, Georgia, where he has served for more than 20 years, with most of that focused on leading worship and the worship experiences. So, without further ado, Todd, how are you today? How's life in Augusta?
It is great, Lee. Great to be on the podcast with you. Looking forward to it. Yeah, Augusta's great. It's always great. Masters is coming up, so you can't beat that. Uh, Nothing like spring and the Augusta National, the Masters tournament in Augusta. There's no doubt.
So, what happens for people that are actually residents whenever the Masters come? Like, do you guys all
Yeah,
leave? Is there a huge party? What goes on?
there's a little bit of all of that. It is
Okay.
actually spring. It's spring break week for all of
Oh
the
wow.
schools. So people do get out of town. We actually rent our house, and people come in and live in our house for a week, and we go to the beach. And so
Oh,
that's a lot of fun. So we watch the Masters from the beach. So
that is
that's
funny. I feel
a
like I've,
good
I've
deal.
heard that before. That story that people
Yeah,
actually that you leave and get to rent out your place, which hey, it makes sense. Everybody's
yeah,
looking for a spot there in Augusta for that week, so that's awesome.
absolutely, absolutely, a lot of fun.
So, what is your Stevens Creek origin story? How'd you land there? At what point in the Stevens Creek journey did you join the church or join the staff there?
Yeah, sure. Well, the church was started in 1987. Pastor Marty, which is the pastor that's still here, the lead pastor, he started the church. Him and his wife Patty. And so I came about 7 years later,
Okay.
or so. So I interviewed with Stevens Creek the year I graduated from Lee University. So I interviewed with them. I was engaged to my wife, April. And so we both went and interviewed actually at two places on the same day.
Oh wow.
And we ended up taking the other church, which Marty was shocked that we took, the other church, but we did. And so I was there for 6 months single, and then got married. And then 6 months we were there together in Columbia. And it just wasn't a fit. It was one of those things where, some really good people, but it just wasn't a fit for who we were. And so we would go back and forth every Sunday night because we had Sunday night service there at the time. And it would be like, we're ready to go. We got to leave. And then April would say, no, it's not time yet. And then she would come back the next Sunday. We got to get out of here. And I was like, no, it's not the right time. We
Yeah.
finally decided it was time. And actually, Marty called me the next day and
Wow.
offered me a job to come to Augusta. And he's like, I don't know if you want to reconsider coming to Augusta. And I was like, a matter of fact, I think we would. And so we came and, kind of interviewed again, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. And so when you first came, what was your role when you first came on the staff?
Sure. Yeah, it was worship leader, program director is what actually we called it back in the day.
Okay.
So we really followed Willow Creek Community Church, and they did, their person that was kind of in my seat was that's what their title was. So we went with that, and so it was we did a lot of drama and a lot of arts type things back then, especially. So there was a lot that kind of came with that.
Got you. So at this point, you're executive pastor of experiences and campuses, which can I say I love the titles that people have now. Like there's like the most interesting
Right.
title. But what does
Right.
that exactly mean? The executive pastor of experiences.
Sure. Well, it means a lot. No, but it's pretty much what it says. I am in charge of or oversee really everything that adults experience when they come to our campuses. So from the website before they come, to the greeters when they come on property, to what happens on the stage and in the auditorium, all the production, videos, lighting, whatever. It's all a part or under my umbrella. And then the campus portion of that is when we started adding campuses to our strategy or our ministry. I oversee those as well. So all the things that happen there, launching those campuses, helping find new locations, kind of having a strategy of how we're going to do that and when we will do that, and then making sure that those are operating the way that they're supposed to operate.
Gotcha.
So a
Wow.
lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces there. So,
Yeah.
which is a great part I love. The reason I thought you'd be great for this conversation is because you kind of have walked that journey from being a worship leader and then growing into, overseeing other worship leaders and a lot of the things that happen on a Sunday morning. But to narrow down our focus, our challenge for today, because I know it can look a lot of different ways. I wrote it down for us to land at what you consider to be the four key roles for a worship leader. Someone, not the definitive answer for
Yeah.
everyone in every church
Right.
in the world, but to give leaders looking to fill this position something to think about. People interested maybe in being a worship leader, some of the tactical things about what is included. I mean, they may have come to church long times, seen someone on Sunday, thought, oh man, that'd be so much fun to have that job, but not know all the parts
Yeah.
that are behind it. And so
Right.
I think at this point, worship ministry, the structure can look so different just from different people I talk to. They can really be set up with a lot of different roles, especially the size of the
Yeah.
church, what that can
For
look like.
sure.
So let's just talk for our kind of case study, someone who's in charge of all of the music portions, all the worship portions of
Yeah.
a Sunday morning service. And I understand the church size can go there. And I want
Sure.
to start with kind of going in the weeds. I think I thought about it too. People say, I want to stay out of the weeds. We want to kind of go into the weeds for a few minutes to
Okay.
get a glimpse of what fills up the time of someone who is filling this role. What am I seeing on their calendar? How are they spending their day, their to-do list? What does that look like,
Right.
Todd?
Yeah, and like you said, that really a lot has to do with the size of church, the amount of staff, all those things. And I've kind of seen the gamut of that over the 27 years that I've been here at Stevens Creek. So, so I'm trying to think back to those times where I didn't have necessarily a full staff like I have now, and kind of what did those days look like? And then even some of these things they still apply today. I just have a lot of other things that I add along with it. So I just kind of jotted some things down starting on a daily basis, like what do I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so Mondays, for most people, I think that are in ministry, it's a kind of a recovery day. I
Yeah.
mean, you spend a lot of energy. You gear a lot of things towards that Sunday experience, that Sunday services that people have, and you can really leave there depleted. And so Mondays, I really try to use that as a time to kind of just recharge a little bit, to kind of recover. So I don't plan a whole lot of things that's going to take a whole lot of brain energy on that day,
Yeah.
and just try to recover. So that's one of the things that we do. We do a lot of evaluation because it's fresh in our mind what just happened on that day on Sunday, and so we do a lot of evaluation. Some of that self evaluation. I always watch the service and
Sure.
critique, the flow of things. I critique myself, the things I say, things I shouldn't have said. I go, oh man, Todd, what were you thinking on that? To just try to make myself better for the next
Yeah.
time when I go out and say I learned a lesson here or there. And then I also something that I started years ago. I write thank you notes, and so people on my team, I use that day to, just a few. I usually do three, and just saying, hey, thanks for serving on the camera today. Because of you,
Yeah.
thousands of people were able to experience the service or whatever it might be. But man, those mean so much. You just don't think about it,
Yeah.
but you send it out, and then they post it on Instagram and say, hey, Pastor Todd, sent me a note or sent me a text just thanking me for the note. And it's just like, okay, that
Yeah.
wasn't a whole lot. I didn't say a whole lot, but it means so much to people. So,
Yeah.
just really trying to
Yeah.
think about those kind of things on Monday. So that's kind of, a Monday. It's kind of low key,
Yeah.
just recovery, evaluation, and just kind of
Yeah.
some loose ends maybe that you need to take care of from the weekend. And so
Yeah.
then usually on Tuesday, Tuesday's more of a work on Sunday, work on the next thing that's coming up. So really kind of try to do that finalizing set list or finalizing some different things that might be in the service. If there's going to be extra things, I always try to have a touch point with Pastor Marty on
Okay.
Tuesdays to see what his message is going to be, any special needs that he might have for the day. Is there anything that we can do to enhance that service? Is there maybe
Yeah.
going to be a song that he wants at the end? So just a touch point with the pastor, I
Hmm.
think, is important. We have regular scheduled meetings that we have with him, so I see him in those, but also just a text or whatever that I sometimes do just to touch base
Okay.
with him. Um, so that's, and then a lot of times on Tuesday, at least with us over the years, we've had staff meetings,
Okay. Yeah.
different, church-wide staff type of things that we have to be a part of. So Tuesdays are meetings, finalizing some stuff for Sundays and kind of making sure you touch base with the pastor. Wednesday I use really as over the years has been kind of a day to create. This is kind of midway through the week. Let's, if you want to create some different experiences that you might be trying to do, something new you might want to incorporate into the service. Write if you write music, this is a
Yeah.
great day to kind of do that. It's a day to work on the ministry.
Yeah.
We so often are working in the ministry, doing the
Yeah.
ministry, but so often we don't take the time or carve out space to work on the ministry. And so this is a day that I use over the years as to work on the ministry. And then just to touch base with my team, some team building type things or reaching out to people. I like to go to lunch with people, on a regular basis just to touch base with them. If I have some folks that are going through hard time or whatever, I usually try to reach out to them on that day. So it's just kind of one of those days to create, to kind of work with your team,
Yeah.
just those kind of things. And then Thursday for us has always been, final things for Sunday. Like
Yeah.
it's usually a mad dash to get everything ready. Any last minute details that you have to do, that you have to get ready to go. The stage, if there are things you need to get on the stage different, or make sure that things are cleaned up, make sure things are ready to go. Again, on Thursday, I touch base with Pastor Marty because
Okay.
usually Thursday by noon is when he's wrapping up his message. He gets us
Okay.
the notes. So I always touch base with him again, and that's when we really finalize, okay, is there something that you're feeling or sensing that you want to do at the end of the service? Do you need a song? Do you need a ministry moment? Do you, whatever it might
Okay.
be, but really touch base with him again, to make sure of that. And then we have a final team meeting that we always have, that we call just the production meeting. We actually have two meetings. We have a stand-up meeting with the whole staff where we come for, like, we just actually stand up. It's 10-minute
Yeah.
meeting, go through any need to knows for the week, um, with everybody. And then I have a production meeting after that. That's everybody that's going to be involved in Sunday. So campus pastors, worship leaders, whoever come together on that. People are doing
Yeah.
comments in that service that day, production director, and we go through the service making sure we have everything that we need for all three campuses. So just some kind of meeting with whoever you have, your staff
Yeah.
or your volunteers, that you can get on a Zoom call or whatever it might be, but to touch base on Sunday service, make sure everybody's on the same page. So that's basically the week as a
Yeah.
snapshot. There's a lot more things there, in
Yes.
there, but those are kind of the big things I would think have been important for me over the years.
Yeah. As far as I'm guessing on as far as like practices, the actually,
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
I mean, you guys have midweek, Sunday morning. How does that work? How's that worked over time for you as far as what practicing looks like?
sure. Yeah, now we've done it several different ways. But what I started doing years ago, especially when my kids were young,
Mhm.
um, I did away with a midweek rehearsal. And the reason I did that is, I wanted to coach my kids. I wanted to be in their lives. And if I had a regular scheduled rehearsal every Tuesday night or whatever it might be, I was missing that opportunity to be with them. And so I did everything I could to make it to where my team is going to be prepared, and I expect that they're going to be prepared and give them all the tools that they need so that when
Yep.
we come in on Sunday morning and have our rehearsal, that they have it together. So, there's a lot that goes along with that. You have to find players that are, able to do that. You have to you create a culture where that is expected. But we have been able to do that. And so, could we be better if we had a midweek? Yes, we probably could.
Mm.
But I feel like that what we do in honoring people's time and honoring their, being able to spend time with their family and
Yeah.
being able to coach your son or your daughter in a sport or whatever it might be, I think it outweighs what the little bit more uh, togetherness or whatever the band might have. It's just I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
So
Which
that's
I
how we've operated. So
yeah. Which when I hear that too, what I hear is the responsibility, the ownership of having the team ready for Sunday morning still falls squarely on your shoulders. It's just, can I do it through this other avenue versus a rehearsal, just making sure they have what they need,
yeah,
building the culture, all those same elements that are still required that Sunday
yeah.
morning when they show up, they're ready to do what they need to do.
Sure. And some of that too, I think is where uh, people are in their lives that are on your team. When we first started, me and my wife, we didn't have kids. We were, didn't have a whole lot to do in the evenings. A lot of my team was that same way. We had the same team pretty much every week. The church wasn't large, so
Yeah.
it was more of a community type thing, and we loved coming to those. So there's some places where that works, and it's best. But we got to a place where our church grew. The people that were on the teams were all different places in their lives, and it just made it to where this was probably the best option for us, and it has been thus far.
Man, I could go off on this conversation. This is so interesting to me. Just for somebody listening, I mean, when you hit on that of like just looking at your team, especially with volunteers, so many volunteers, and acknowledging like,
Yeah,
hey, we have a team where this works, or we have a team where maybe we have to go a different avenue, which I love. Just a leadership
yeah,
perspective of thinking through that and understanding every season is not the same, and the size of church and all of that plays into it
right,
all.
for
So
sure, for
cool.
sure.
So one thing I want to say here too, if you're finding value in this conversation, want to know more about role clarity, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. We're also be doing some more different ministry roles. So thinking about lead pastor or small groups, those kind of things, I would encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss those when those happen. So we're going to turn now to, we've outlined everything that, not everything. We know they do a lot more than what we've listed, but a number of those things. And so the challenge now for us, Todd, is to land at the four buckets that best hold this list of responsibilities. I call this four key roles and role clarity. And the foundation of the role clarity framework that I teach teams is that clarity thrives within limitations. And so we have to have limits if we're going to have true clarity about what is most important. So I challenge
Yeah,
every leader to determine the four key roles from the top leader to the newest person that just hired, that intern. I think this is a valuable exercise. And so the main ground rule that we're going to be working from is we want to outline four roles. And this is the structure that I tell any team leader, team member when working there is we're trying to get to 70% of what they do. I understand
yeah,
that it kind of gives us that 30% thing of the other elements that fall into, and you referenced some meetings, I'm sure just some ministry responsibilities that you play. It's just a team member, visitations, doing different
yeah.
stuff that comes along. But we're looking for 70%. So in your mind, you're taking a shot at this with some thoughts about what those four roles may be from things that we've listed.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, when this was a great exercise for me to do, just to
Yeah.
really look at those things because you do find yourself doing so many different things in so many different areas. What are those four kind of key things? Um, and this is kind of what I came up with. The first thing is that I I am to pastor my team.
Yeah.
Like that's first and foremost, I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
Um, and that means a lot of different things. I mean, that's just a very wide range of things, and it's not like that it happens just in a moment or just in a 30-minute segment. I mean, you are pastoring your team all week. That's your main job. And this is what I have found. I have found that if you truly pastor people, they are going to they are going to run through a wall for you.
Wow.
So there are people that are on my team that have been on my team for the whole 27 years that I've been here. I I mean, a lot of people that have been on that team in one capacity or another. And I can point back to those folks, and I can point back to different situations when I was here for 5 years and my guitar player, Gary Baxter, had an issue with a family member, and I was there for them. And we went through this process. And, over and over again, you've been there for somebody, and then they're there for you. And then they're there wanting to help and make sure that they're making the ministry better and helping you make the ministry better. Like another lady that was on my production team, her father went and had a heart attack, and she called me like it was midnight, and I immediately went, and I went to the hospital and was there with her during that time. With her mom, the same type of situation. She would run through a brick wall for me. It's just
Yeah.
you are there for people. You help pastor people, and you show you care, and they're going to help you in accomplishing all the goals that you have for your ministry and the things that you want to do. But most of all, you're just being there for people. That's our main job. I mean, we're pastoring people. We're here to help people take the next step, help people, find God, help people grow in the relationship with Jesus. And that's just not the lead pastor's role. I mean, that
Yeah.
is all of our jobs that are on staff at a church to kind of help people do that and take their next step. So that's kind of the first thing. The
Yeah.
second thing that I think is to be a creator. Like, one of my jobs is to create things, to create experiences, create what happens on Sunday, to be able to see that. I need to. I'm taking people on a journey on Sunday, and I need to be able to know where that journey is going to end for the most part, so I can navigate people through that. And so you're creating that experience even before it happens. Yes, we're leaving room for the Holy Spirit, and we want God to move and however He wants to move. But I got to be able to see that. I know how a song is going to end. I know how this is going to end. I know that we're going into the message, or we have a video, or we have this, and I have to tie all those things together. So I want to create an experience that's going to help people, connect with God, those that are far from God, and then also those that have been believers all their lives. So
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so to create something like that, it takes some time and some energy and some focus.
Yeah.
And so we got to be able to create. We got to be able to see and
Mhm.
form things in our ministries. So I think that's one thing. And creating is a lot of different things. Writing
Yeah.
music, you can do a lot of different things there. The third thing is you got to be um, a builder of your team and a recruiter of your team.
Yeah.
Like, this is a big deal. I mean, some places you can just, people are going to come, and you're beating them back with a stick because everybody wants to be on your team, but usually that's not the way it happens. I mean, you got to be able to recruit. You got a lot of positions you got to fill every week, and Sundays come at an incredibly regular rate. I don't know if you know that or
Yes.
not, but it's like you turn around, Sundays here again, and you got to have people to volunteer and to do all the things. So you got to be building your teams, recruiting more people for your teams, and just helping that go forward. So you have to be that. That's a huge part of the job.
Yes. I
And then
think
the
what
last thing,
one thing there, Todd. I think the
yeah,
one thing that's really interesting, even as you say that, is that, I mean, first of all, you already said two things that are very much about team building and caring for people, pastoring a team, building a team, and just that coordination there with the creator side is that just both sides. I think sometimes people can be like, but how do both of these things happen? I'm a
sure,
creator, but I'm
yeah,
more in like the art part of it. Whatever is just seeing, even just listing it out there, the critical part of
yeah,
both sides of that. Of it is very important to create, but that creating can only go as far as the people who are going to carry it
for
forward
sure,
and do it. And so yeah, I really like seeing that. That's interesting. So go ahead.
yeah, for sure, yeah. And then the last thing is the importance, or I think part of my job is to support the lead pastor. This is, to me, so huge, um, especially in smaller churches or mid-sized churches, but even in large churches. That role, or that relationship between your lead pastor and your worship leader, or your person that's over, what happens in the service, is so key, because you two are really leading what happens in all those experiences. And if you guys are not on the same page, if if I'm not trying to make sure that I am um, having an experience that he wants to have, or that ties in with his personality, even, or his the way that he wants to have a service look, if I'm not going along with that and helping him do that, then I'm working against him.
Yeah.
And so often that happens to where you have a worship leader that has his own mind and idea of what things should look like. And then you have a pastor that it's totally different. And that might be age, that might be style, that might be a lot of different things. Maybe they just don't connect. But if you don't connect with your lead pastor, senior pastor, you really need to look for a place that you are going to be able to connect. So either you got to make an effort and find bridges or ways that you can connect and get on the same page with your pastor, or you really need to be looking for other places that you can find somebody that you can do that with, because it's not gonna have the fruit that we want if those two relationships are not in sync.
Wow. Yeah. That's huge. I really one of the things that stuck out to me as I was making notes of the different things throughout your week. One was just the even at this point in your career, I mean, this far down the road, is that still several times a week, like I purpose to check in to make sure, like, hey, here's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking. What are you thinking? And to make that a regular part of it. Um, yeah, I think too. One of the things that's interesting to me as I'm listing all these out is so many times, the responsibilities that fall under the worship leader of, preparing the set list and making sure people have either the rehearsals or they're getting the stuff that they need,
right.
running those things and executing, they falling under just still the way we understand those four roles can really change how they play out. And that's what I loved, even when you said pastoring the team, is that
Yeah,
the vehicle is the worship ministry, but ultimately what I'm here to do is to pastor them, and that we're
yeah,
using this for those things to be happening, which is super interesting. So we have what you would say are pastoring the team, creating, team building, and then supporting the lead pastor, being four roles. Man,
yeah,
I love it. What I say to anyone who's watching is, it's fine for you to put four different ones, but just like you said, the exercise
yeah,
of, if I had to list them down, because so often what I see is, if you're not careful, we start a list and like it comes this like fantasy list of somebody who's like this perfect person who's doing every single thing, at a level 10. And even from our conversation, there's just times where there's choices you have to
yeah.
make of, okay, I'm not going to do this, but I think this is worth it for us to put our energy here and to limit this or that, for
For
sure.
sure. And I think that's a big thing for, leaders as they grow. So much of your time is figuring out what those things are, and
Yeah,
then being able to make those choices, like you said, that's going to be best for your church, your organization, your family, and all those things.
cool. So, if this exercise has you thinking about what you would say are the four key roles for a worship leader, then we are accomplishing what we're after. I've created a free guide that includes the keynotes from this conversation, along with some guided questions to help you clarify your answers. So, if you think that would be helpful to go through for yourself, if you are a worship leader thinking, what are my four key roles? I encourage you to download that. If you're a pastor thinking about how to clarify to your worship leader, it could be for you, or if you're just want to talk through it with a peer, please, hope it's a blessing to you, but you can download that. So our final section, what I wanted to do, Todd, is to ask some questions. I know we kind of have touched on some of these, but I still think it's worth it for us to spend a few minutes with them, digging
For
a little
sure.
bit deeper into how this plays out in your own experience. So one question I have, and somebody who grew up in the church and the Christian world, is, how have the expectation and roles for what a worship leader does changed in the last 20-25 years, from your opinion?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's changed a lot. I think that when I first started, many years ago, um, there was a lot more. Um, it was truly a pastoral role. Like, you were coming on to help pastor churches, and I think that where it has changed the most is now there's not a whole lot of people that I would say that are worship pastors. They are worship leaders. And the difference in that is worship leaders are almost like a hired gun,
Hmm.
where churches they don't necessarily work during the week. They come in, they help with the band, they lead worship, they great vocalist, they love God, but they have another job or they do something else on the side, and it's not so much of a pastoring role, but it's a worship leader role. Um, and so, I think that's good in a lot of ways, but I think that's bad in a lot of ways, because I think that you miss out on so much of what I talked about earlier of pastoring people, and you just can't do all of that. And I found that most of the time, they don't want to do that. They just want to get up and have their guitar and lead worship and you know say a prayer and then they're done. And they might even do that at another church the next week,
Yeah.
or whoever is going to hire them to come and do it. So I think that worship pastor role has really shifted as a whole. Um, and like I said, I think it has some good and it has some bad. But I think that's one of the major things that has changed over the years.
Yeah. And boy, we could dig deep here. I think too. I think for a lead pastor who's looking and having this conversation, also is just that thing of, are we if you're going to choose the worship pastor, maybe who has that pastor's heart, or sometimes the reason why you have hired gun for a worship leader is because they are a unbelievably talented person
Right,
doing it.
right,
And that's one of the things I say about role clarity is, for me, a lot of times when I'm working with a team, I'm not here to tell you what it should be, but
right.
somewhere on a piece of paper, we should be able to look and see, this is what I'm hiring for. This is what we're
Yeah,
asking someone to be. Can this person fulfill that? Um,
yeah.
I think it's
And a
a
lot of times
big
in
one.
Yeah, and a lot of times in those situations, especially at some of a larger church or even a mid-sized church, they can hire somebody in to do that is uber talented, can loves the Lord, that kind of stuff, as long as they have somebody else that's on staff, a worship director, whatever it might be, that is doing those other things that I was talking about.
Yeah,
So that's how that can work. But if you don't have both of those pieces, either in one person or having two people or a group of people doing that, it can be, I don't think it's a healthy thing. I think it's not gonna help you long term to grow and to be the congregation or be the
yeah,
fellowship or the group of people that you want to be.
yeah. And a lot of times, when I'm being in situations like this, a lot of times what I'll say is, it's sometimes it's great we'll have this one role, and splitting it into two people doing
Yeah,
different parts, and actually let you have some more specialists, but just make exactly what you said,
yeah,
making sure that it's still
yeah.
covered. The pastoring part is still is still covered, even if you have them, somebody, a worship leader coming in and working underneath them or working alongside them.
Right.
Okay, so let's step into a good one here. When it comes to role clarity, I see leaders and team members come face to face with the reality of unrealistic expectations. So I want to ask you, what are some of the most unrealistic expectations that you've seen pastors have of somebody who is the worship leader?
Sure. I think one of the main things that had was probably an issue early on with me a little bit, and I see this so often in others, is that we can read the lead pastor's mind. That um, we're just supposed to know what they want
Yeah,
and do it.
yeah,
Um, and that's why it's been so important here with me and with Marty, our lead pastor. We've had that open line of communication to where I actually can read his mind these days,
yeah,
as we've gone further. But on the onset, I couldn't. But he was very intentional over time to make sure that I knew what he was looking for. And we went to conferences, we went and watched things. We were on the same page of where we were going and where we were trying to take this congregation. And so that is just so important. And to have the expectation that that just happens is just not fair to the person that you're your worship leader. So don't expect your worship leader just to read your mind. Communicate, 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 and give examples
Yeah.
take them places of where you want your church, what you want your church to look like. I'm a
Yeah.
visual type person, so like you show me something, you show me a song and a something and how that flowed, and I like that. Okay, I can do that. I can make that happen. But just don't expect me just to pick that up through you
Yeah.
know just
But
brain waves or something.
oh man, so many good things there. Which one thing I love that even you just said there is I think sometimes we think we can communicate it one time or a couple times and they get it, but the idea of examples, conferences, seeing it
Yeah,
play out and say, "I love how that played out," um,
yeah,
it's just so big, and yeah, and thinking they can read your mind, or when you start talking about worship, I think it's kind of like if you ever, I sometimes do subcontracting with someone who's a designer, and I know how frustrated I am. I was like, I want a modern, clean feel, and they're like, "What does that mean? Could you show me one thing of modern, clean? That could mean a billion things." And
right.
I think sometimes as a pastor, like especially in the spiritual world, we just use these really vague terms. Just that there's a
Yeah,
clear presence. It's like I need to know what that means. Help to you what that
right.
means. I know what I think it means. So, and that can only come
Yeah,
with conversation. Just
for
multiple
sure.
conversations that can where years down the road you can say, I actually do know what he's thinking a lot of times now.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
let's flip
No,
the
it's so
script on that
important.
a little bit. What are the most unrealistic expectations that worship leaders have as far as their role?
Yeah, this is worship leaders can be very hard on themselves. I like things to be done well. I always have, and so we work really hard towards those things. Excellence honors God and inspires people. We want to have things with excellence, and so I think that so often we can, um, especially if we're early on or don't have the resources or maybe the people that we really want, and we're in that building process, that we can look at other places and really have that comparison thing going on, where we watch a church that's thousands of people, and we're a church of 300 or
Yeah,
whatever it might be, and we want to do things like they do it and sound like they sound and have our online feed sound like theirs sounds and all the different things. And if we're not careful, we can just have this comparison game, and it just can really be defeating. So you have to make sure you can look at where you are, the resources that you have. That's what I teach my team about excellence. Excellence is not being perfect. Excellence isn't about being the very best thing that's ever happened. Excellence is about being the very best with what God has given you, whether
yeah,
that be resources, whether that be the talent, whether that be the people, the equipment, whatever it might be, being the best that you can be with that. That's excellence. And the excellence that looks different, throughout your career or throughout, the journey that you have and the growth of your teams. And so, but that comparison thing can just really be something that can come and bite you.
yeah. And I can only imagine for somebody who's coming into worship leader in this current reality where we have YouTube. And so now, back in the
Yeah,
day, like you may have heard somebody who was great. Well, now like you can just be flooded with people who are just absolute rock
yeah,
stars, world class
yeah,
musicians. Some of these churches when you see and you can hear the kind of the backstories of the musicians they have playing. And it's just that's tough. I'm from a small town in West Monroe. That's tough to match up with some church in Nashville
yeah,
that's, got professionals all over the place.
for sure. No, it's a comparison game for sure.
Okay, so and we've talked about this some, but I do want us to hit it again. You've worked with the same pastor for so how many years have you worked with Pastor Marty?
27 years.
So 27 years, have a lot of success as a
Yeah.
team. What are the most essential places where the pastor and worship leader need to have clarity and make sure that they are on the same page? I mean, what are the most important places where that really is important?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to a lot what we said earlier, and it's just that you're a team. He needs me and I need him. Um, and it really is a partnership that can be a catalyst to see your church go forward. But it also can be something that can tear it down. And so it's just such an important relationship, and that the communication is there and that the respect is there. And, I know that Marty respects me, and he cares for me. And I'm going to be loyal to him. I'm going to be loyal to the vision that he has had for this ministry. And because now it became my vision, you know what I'm saying? So he brought me in on it. And so now this is our vision to see what God is going to do in our community and what he can do through us. I mean, it's, coming from when I came to the church and it was got down to 150 people to where we're running thousands of people over 3 campuses is just amazing that God would use us to do that. But it takes communication, and it takes loyalty, and it takes working through things when they're not easy. Because, like in any relationship, you're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have some times when you don't see eye to eye. But so often, especially today, I feel like that this is something that happens. We just cut and run. If
Yeah.
something's not going right, we'll go somewhere else and start over instead of doing the hard work and saying, okay, I didn't agree with that. I don't think I see that the same way, but let's work through it and get the other side of it. And you're going to be better. You're going to be stronger. And then I have a unique perspective of being able to look back over 27 years, being at the same church, with the same pastor, and seeing all the ways that God has been faithful, seeing all the ways that God has used us, seeing all the ways of people that we have raised up that are still in the ministry, seeing people that we have raised up that not now are running, pastoring their own churches and worship leaders at other churches, all across the world, that we see the people that have come through Stevens Creek Church. And we've had a little piece of that and a part of that. If you're going around to different places and not in one place, planting roots, you don't see that really. And so it's just been an amazing journey, and so thankful that we've had this opportunity. But the communication and just being there, I think, is so important.
Oh wow. Yeah. And I think too, because I'm kind of comparing even, comment you made earlier, just about if you come to a place where like you and the lead pastor can't get on the same page, can't, doesn't, can't work that together. What I'd say to somebody is to come to that place after you have given your all to aligning those visions, to understanding what their vision is, seeing how that can work together, what God has placed on your heart. I think that too is, great relationships in any place. They take work, they take hard moments,
Yeah,
great moments, all that together. But when you say that, just about, I love that line that you said there too, just about the vision kind of became an alignment there. We're on the same page. We have the
yeah,
same. I understand his vision aligns with what I'm, with what I'm doing, and I think
right.
the fruit of, it's hard in those tough moments to see 25 years down the road, but just the benefit of working hard at that relationship and how much it ends up meaning to both of you over time and to what eventually
Yeah,
happens there. And you said, I mean, one thing I do in our previous conversation, I do want to jump to is I love the line that you said we were talking, was saying just how critical it was, especially in those early days when you were building, that you guys were lockstep together. How much you needed each other during those early days of
yeah.
building the church. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are so important. Those early days, or the first, year, 2, 3 that you are together or at some place, you are learning each other. You are learning what this pastor wants, your whoever your leader is, whether even in a business, you are
yeah,
learning what, that person expects, how they operate, and then trying to figure out how you can help them get to the goals that they have.
yeah, absolutely. Todd, I truly appreciate so much you taking the time to hang out with me
Yeah,
today and have
man.
this conversation. I hope it's a blessing to those people who watch, maybe an encouragement to them. If you're wanting to know more about Role Clarity and what it looks like, check the description below, or you can go to roleclarity.co, and download the free Kickstarter series where I walk through 3 5-minute videos explaining the heart of Role Clarity. What does it look like when a team embraces it? The advantage you can have. I would love for you to do that. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.